You're listening to Releasing Trauma, a survivor's podcast. And now here's your host, Tracy Osborne. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Today, we are going to be talking about having backup plans, creating emergency preparedness plans and kits, that kind of thing. Just making sure you have your stuff together, because you never know what's going to happen. Tomorrow's not a guarantee. So with me today is Tina Ginn. She is the CEO and developer of Your Backup Plan app and the Emerging Blueprint. She's a financial expert and emergency preparedness coach and a best-selling author. So, Tina, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Tracy. Thank you, listeners, for having me today.
Absolutely. And, I think this is so important because we don't know when trauma or when life is going to hit us in the face, And so having those plans, it's something that we definitely need to do. But I think nobody wants to do it because they don't want to think about, what if something bad happens? Nobody wants to think about that.
Well, we don't. We think we're Superman.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I remember when my ex-husband said to me, "What is your New Year's resolution this year?" And I said, "Well, I don't know about mine, but I know what yours is. You're going to get fixed and you're going to get a will done." That comes from the blood of my emergency preparedness.
Those are good resolutions to have.
So, it all started for me when I had a very dear friend who just turned 60, who went in at Easter time for some tests at the hospital because she was feeling like she had a cough. Oh, imagine that in this day and age of the pandemic. Yeah. And God only knows what we would think of it now. But her husband had called me and said, could you pick her up after her tests are done? He had to go back to his little store that they had operating. And I said, sure, just let me know. Well, that day he called and said, she's not coming home. She has to stay in for more tests. So the next day she found out she had stage 4 lung cancer. And it was a real turning point for me, even though I was every day talking and helping people and clients with being prepared for disability, being prepared for life in general. And I had just created, sort of in the works of creating this app, when I would go and visit her at the hospital. And she, one day I took her some tea because you know what the tea and coffee tastes like in the hospital. And she said, let's go out onto the patio. So we took a few steps out to the patio, and she looked at me and she touched my arm and she said, Tina, I just want to see the birds and I just want to feel the breeze on my face. And I want to see the blue sky. And that was such an impact for me, because I thought, here we are preparing for all of this stuff all the time. Well, some of us do, some of us don't. We don't look at it that way, but we're not present. We're not present in the moment, and we can't be if we have all this crap that we have to worry about. And only worry is because we're not prepared. We worry because, oh shit, did I leave the key? Where's the keys? How do you get into her house? How do you find her documents? Does she have a will? What about her dog? What about her cat? All of these things are all of a sudden just getting thrown at the people left beside the bed. Yeah. And you worry and you can't think of anything else other than when you should be holding her arm and her hand and hugging her. So, yeah, as you can see, it's been like 15 years and I still feel it like it was yesterday.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah, that feeling never goes away.
No.
It never does. And it'll creep up and hit you no matter in the strangest times. So no worries. No worries at all. And I'm very sorry for that, for your friends. But it makes me think of my best friend back in 2012 was, one night she and I were texting and stuff. And then I didn't hear from her again. And the next morning I'm like, hello, where are you? And, one of the things that we used to say to each other is, are you killed dead? It was just, a joke between us. So I text her, I'm like, where are you? Are you killed dead? Well, it turns out she had been in a car accident. She had been, she was with her ex, who was her very, very best friend. And they and one other person had been in his very expensive Jaguar, and he was taking them for a spin down the road. And they didn't know that he'd been drinking and mixing alcohol with pills. And at about 80 miles an hour on a back road, he blacked out, missed a curve, and hit a tree full force. And she wasn't wearing a seatbelt. And so, we ended up, somebody called me and let me know about the accident, and I had to get a hold of her family. I had to go up to her house. Luckily, her house was open. Her phone was there. I was able to get into her phone to call her sister and be like, do you know where your sister is? Nobody can find her. And we ended up finding her as a Jane Doe in a hospital. And a week later, her family ended up taking her off life support. With that, there was no will. There was no, there was nothing. There was no plan. She had 5 dogs. We had just started an animal rescue together. And, she had a house and a cleaning business and all of this stuff. And yeah, there was no plan. So we're all, coming together going, okay, now what do we do?
Yeah.
What do we do? Who's going to take the dogs? I ended up having to deal with the dogs. And, and her family had so much other stuff that they had to deal with closing up the house and the funeral and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, not having that, that preparedness of even just something as basic as just having a will or a piece of paper that says, look, in the event of my death, do this, or if I should be incapacitated for any reason.
Because it keeps everybody arguing and fighting and worrying and stressed. And
oh good God, that's a whole nother show. This whole fighting over, your loved one's belongings.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother podcast.
And it's just as difficult if she was in a coma for a while and then gained back and came through. Yeah. It's still a long journey of a mess. Like who's looking after her cleaning business? Who's going to pay her mortgage or her rent? Yep. Who's going to pay her utility bills? Who's looking after her dogs when she could have easily been in there for months on end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Has she not been brain dead? Absolutely. But the fact that she was actually brain dead, they kept her on as long as the hospital said that they had to run all the tests and, make sure. But yeah, absolutely. And, for that matter, her friend who was driving, he lived next door. He also had a house in Atlanta and, a business and all kinds of other stuff. And so he was in rehab he was in the hospital for several weeks. He was in rehab for even longer. And that was all left to his family and people to deal with, his dogs and his, I don't know if he had anything. He may have actually had stuff in place. I don't know. But you just don't know. Yeah, most likely not. But he was a very well-off man. So I tend to think that he may have had something in place, but
that's usually the sign of not.
Yeah.
The more toys you have, the
Mm,
more that people are not prepared.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I know that he finally came home and um got his affairs in order because he was supposed to go to jail. And
Oh,
he ended up actually taking his life the day before he went to jail,
oh dear.
or the day before he was scheduled to report. And he knew that was what he was going to do. He knew. So he wrapped up all his loose ends, took care of, all his stuff and all of that. But my whole point is just that whole, you just don't know when something's going to happen. You
No,
just don't know.
you sure don't. You don't know 1 hour to the next.
Absolutely.
And we take it all for granted, and we think we're prepared. Even if you had a will done, there's so much other stuff. Like there's websites for lost money that has never been collected from family members. And I have it all in the emerging blueprint where you can go check and where you can go look for that. And if there's any money sitting in accounts, because she could have had multiple accounts, and how do you know where they are? Or an aunt passing away, and she could have had her funeral arranged and you wouldn't even know.
Mm-hmm.
She could have a life insurance policy, and if you don't find any paperwork on it, you would never know to claim the life insurance policy. It's the biggest money maker insurance companies have, is never collecting on the insurance policy. So, you've paid for it for all of these months or years, and no one ever knows that it was even there. So it's just a matter of, it's an easy app to put your stuff in it. It's broken down into categories, and the emerging blueprint isn't launched yet, but as soon as it does, it's going to be awesome, because there's a library of videos that you can listen to, 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 10-minute videos on interviews with attorneys and lawyers and insurance people and house insurance and travel insurance and funerals and emergency kits and disaster planning. And I mean, you can delve into it as much as you want. I wanted to embrace the information and empower, I hate to say it, but I want to empower women in getting their crap together and not leaving it up to your husband. I really, truly want to push that on everybody, because when I walk down the street and say, do you have your backup plan? Majority of people say, oh, my husband looks after that. No, he doesn't. So get the app, know what crap you have to do, and know what you have to fill in. It's just easy. You could look at it every week and just put another section in it and get done. I mean, I always say one section is better than none.
Absolutely.
And I always say, do your bills first. What bills need to be paid? Because if anything happened to you and you're still alive, that's the most important thing for your family or friends to be able to access when you have given that permission to them. To access this app, look in that category, and then they can look after everything else from there. Know where your accounts are, because now with the privacy issues, we don't get mail in the mailbox anymore. We get it. Yeah, we get it in our email. So unless you have access to their email, you'd have no idea what bill is due, where to pay it, what account they have. There's a lot of digital assets now. We have all sorts of digital assets that aren't really logged anywhere. You wouldn't know if you're playing Xbox, for instance, and winning money. You might have digital assets in that. Gambling, or digital assets and accounts of other variations, or websites, social media. You do not want your social media access after you're gone, because it gets hacked. Yep. And people become your identity, and you don't want that. You don't want to see your loved one coming up in your feed 2 years later with something to say.
And there is with Facebook, I know, I don't know that you can do it on any of the other social media accounts, but with Facebook, you can actually go into your settings and you can choose what to do with your account in the event of your death.
That's right.
And, who has access to memorialize it and that kind of thing. And after my mom died, and after my husband died, especially, I went in and made sure of all that, memorialized it, and then I found that setting and got mine all set up too. So, it's just little things like that that makes it a little bit easier for your family.
That's right. Because when you don't have it, you have to go to get a court order to have your accounts, fixed.
Yeah, you got to go through probate and all that garbage.
Yeah.
And something that I was thinking about while you were talking about the app and everything is your logins. It got me thinking actually, because, my fiance, he knows the login. Well, he has logins for a bunch of his, a bunch of accounts. And I have logins for the accounts that I had before we got together, like, the power and the water and all of that.
Yeah.
If something were to happen to him, I wouldn't have a clue unless I can get into his phone, which I can. We have our fingerprints on each other's phones for that reason. But
just good.
He wouldn't have clue one about my stuff because it's not on my phone. I do all that stuff on my computer. So, having somewhere that you can keep your passwords, your logins, and your passwords, even if it's just a Word document or something in a hidden folder, or
that's right.
And that's also a really good thing to do.
And that's excellent. And I always say to people as well is you don't have to take a picture of your passwords and logins. Mm-mm. You can just take a picture of the drawer that it's in or the book that it's in, or just so that somebody can see, oh, okay, I can see where they put it. It's this book. Okay. You don't have to put exact details that's what's so nice about it. Even your will, you don't have to put the details of your will in the app. You can just take a picture of it. Where is it? It's like your medical. You can take pictures of when you go to the doctor and say, I'm sitting in Dr. Smith's office today with a cold and a cough and a sore throat. And then you could come out and you have a prescription and you just take a picture of it. So it logs all of your visits, all of your prescriptions. You can do that for surgeries. So you can keep a log of your own medical history.
Yeah.
That prescription didn't work, or I never took that, or I did that 3 years ago. We can't do that beside, just on our own. I haven't met anyone that can tell me what the prescriptions they've taken in the last 10 years and their surgeries, even. So it's
surgeries I can do because I've only had one, but medicines, not a clue. Not a clue.
Yeah. So that's really helpful too.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that idea. Something else that I do is I have a family binder, and in that binder I have, the sheep protectors, and I have social security cards, I have birth certificates, marriage certificates, divorce papers, all that important stuff that's in one binder, and it goes into a fireproof safe.
Right. So what I want to say about that is we had an instance in a wildfire where they had a fireproof safe here in British Columbia in this past summer. And the fireproof safe burned. So what I always suggest people to do is keep it in the fireproof safe. But if you had to evacuate, you grab that stuff. You grab it and stick it in your emergency kit. But at least it's all together. You don't have to worry about it. The other thing that I always say in that instance as well is in the section where you take photos of your rooms, photos of your objects, because insurance is going to need that. Mm-hmm. So if anything was to happen and your house is flattened, whether it's a flood or a fire or hurricane, you have all the items in your app that's listed. It could be art, it could be hobbies. I have a guy who collects fire trucks. What on earth would his wife do if he passed away? What would she do with fire trucks and parts? You don't want to sell it for next to nothing.
Right. Especially if it's worth stuff.
Right.
Money. So,
that's right. So that's why I always say to the people, if you have special objects that you want to make sure that your spouse wanted or needed to sell it or keep it, then this is who you call, and this is what it's worth. This person will give you the best advice, because putting it on Craigslist and just getting rid of it, it could be thousands of lost money.
Yep.
And that's not a good idea. And I want to take a minute and go to the condo collapse with regards to that.
Yeah.
So now there's all this items that they've collected in the rubble, but family members are having difficulty in knowing what was their family items, because we don't know if that was, you might know their ring, but you might not know all their jewelry. You might not know what picture. Well, you might know a picture, but you don't know items of theirs. And so if they had the app and they had everything logged of photos of the rooms, photos of their jewelry box, photos of art objects or whatever, their dish sets, you would know what they have. And this is, created a whole other world, like a hurricane as well.
Let me ask you something about the app, though. If, say in the event of the condo collapse, their phone is going to most likely be destroyed. How will the family know about this app? And how would they access it if they did know about the app?
So when you create your profile at the very beginning, when you sign in, you have to give a guest user access. So you choose that family member, and you can choose a couple people if you wish. So it could be your spouse or your fiance, and then the other person could be your sister or something.
Right. Okay.
And they get an email sent to them. So that access, you then can log into the app and access the information.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm definitely going to look into this. I have to admit, I'm very open and honest on this show. So I have to be,
That's fine.
I have to admit, I have the binder. It needs to be updated. I have the spreadsheet of passwords and stuff. Totally needs to be updated. I don't have any of that stuff in place. I don't have the emergency preparedness. I don't have a will. I don't have any of that stuff. And I'm just as guilty as the next person. So
that's perfect.
But look, here I am. I am 2 weeks away from turning 50. I am not going to live forever, as much as I want to think that I'm going to. And, I got 4 kids to think about that are, and a fiance who are going to have to pick up the pieces when I'm gone. So, or sick. Yeah. I think about the fact that I lost my husband unexpectedly. He had a widowmaker, and boom, 3 days later, he was gone. And we had never talked about, end of life. What did he want? Any of that. And I had to make all those decisions. And I don't want that for my kids. Yeah. I don't want my kids to have to think about, well, God, what did mom want? Well, here's what mom wants. This is what mom wants you to do with her body.
Right.
This is what mom wants you to do with her stuff and all that. So yeah, definitely it's nobody wants to think about it. Nobody wants to think about the worst things happening to them.
Yeah.
That's why, people don't get life insurance. Well, because my ex-husband used to joke, well, if we get life insurance, that just means you're going to knock me off,
Yeah.
It's like, no, dude.
Yeah.
You're worth more to be alive because, but
that's true.
We don't want to think about it, and we don't want to think about dying and pre-planning our funerals and all of that. Well, it's not fair to leave that up to our loved ones. They're going to be numb. Yes. They're going to be not in their right minds, thinking. Yeah. And now all of a sudden they have to think, okay, casket, music. Are we doing cremation? Are we doing a burial? Where do we bury them? What are they going to wear? Have all that stuff planned out for your family members in advance.
So in the Launching Blueprint program, you'll get worksheets that you just have to print off, sit down, and we do workshops on this online even, where you get some wine, you get some appies, you get some coffee or Bailey's, whatever you want.
Sure.
You make an evening of it. And all you do is go down the worksheet, and before you know it, it's all answered. And you can sit in front of your mom, you can sit in front of your spouse, and you can just do the worksheet. It makes it simple and easy. And now there's no not understanding what it is that they wanted.
I like that.
So it's really simple, really simple. And every time we get through one, we have some more food. We have some more and we just get through it. And
by the end of the night, we're snookered.
We're happy.
We're very happy. Yeah, and that's something I've actually thought about, with my kids. My girls are 30, between 17 and 30.
Yeah.
I don't know what they want should something ever happen.
Yes.
I am all about cremation. So, my first thought would be cremation, but they may not want that. They may want their body donated to science, or they may want, buried somewhere special, or, something like that. So,
or organ donation or something.
Organ donation, all that. So, it's not just us that we need to think about, but also, our kids and
our parents
and our parents. My parents are gone, so I don't have to worry about that anymore. But my fiance, he's still got his parents, so that's a conversation we need to have with his family. So and it doesn't mean that you're thinking about and planning your death. It just means you're getting ready for the day that it happens, because it will happen. We all die.
I say that in every podcast of mine, we're not Superman, expect the unexpected. And Mike Tyson always says, everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face.
Or bite off an ear.
I think we think, I have a will, and they think that's it. No, it's not it. That's the plan that you thought you had until you got punched in the face, because you could be in COVID with an ICU, and then you're out of luck. You're out of luck.
Yeah. And
because you could
be last time you updated that will.
Yeah.
And when was the last time, like you mentioned about taking pictures of your stuff? That's something I've got to do too. Because insurance won't just take your word for it that you have 6 computers and 3 TVs, and you need to take pictures of them in the room, take pictures of the serial numbers,
of your dishes,
dishes, anything that's valuable. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Furniture, cars, vehicles, assets. Outside pictures of the house, outside pictures of the garage, the property, everything, because 1 minute a hurricane can come and take it all down and flatten it like it was never there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. It's called being a responsible adult. And I know we don't want to do that, but sometimes we have to.
No, but I try to make it fun. I really do. And the treasure box is the last module in the Emerging Blueprint program. And we have such fun workshops on that, with getting together with a glass of wine or coffee. And we talk about what we'd like to do. Maybe we get ideas from other people in the meeting. But, I always say that think about every year about something that you could put aside for your family members that really meant something to you that year, that really, smelled like you, that felt like you, like a scarf or a crocheted pair of sweater that never got finished, or, it could be anything. And it's so special when you can find this treasures after the person is gone, their shirt that they wore that still has their aftershave on it. And you there's nothing better in the whole wide world than to find some of those little those little special things that you find afterwards. And that's the fun part that you can add to it over the years. Little videos that you made, or your poetry that you wrote, or the recipes that you put together that were special in your family, or that you did, or in your handwriting, or your music that you wrote or sang, or whatever it might be, or the books you wrote. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, it can be fun. It can be very special. And when you put all of this types of things together, it takes time for sure, but you just do it little bit by bit.
Yep, absolutely. You don't have to do it all at the same time, all at one time, and do 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there. Absolutely. Until it gets done. And then, just update things once a year.
That's right. And
or
the
twice
great
a year
thing is it notifies you. A pop-up comes up and says, your car insurance is coming up next month. So it lets you know your life insurance is coming up for renewal. Yeah. It will tell you once you've logged it in. You have to put all those specific things in. It will ask you the questions and you just put it in, and then it will notify you when it's coming up so that you're not shocked by, oh, I guess I don't have that anymore because it didn't renew.
Okay. Well, I've got a couple of questions. We have, just a couple of minutes. We're actually probably over time, but I have a couple of questions. One, is this app available to anybody, anywhere, or is it North America specific?
Anywhere, anywhere, anyone.
Android and iPhone?
Android and iPhone. Awesome. Apple.
And is there, I'm assuming there's a cost for it?
$7.99.
That's it?
$7.99.
Is that per month, or is that just a one-time thing?
One-time fee.
Holy cow. Okay.
So there's no reason not to be prepared.
Yeah. When does your emergency preparedness course come out?
Well, I was hoping to have it finished by December 31st, but that's long gone. So I'm going to say in 2 months, I will have it all set. It's just that it's just like my app was. It just keeps accumulating and becoming bigger and bigger. And I just have to put an end to some point and then just continue it on. Every month I'll keep adding to it.
Awesome. We'll definitely make sure you let me know so that I can let our listeners know when that's out. And then the last thing I want to ask you about is your book, In the Blink of an Eye.
Yes. In the Blink of an Eye was from my car accident that I had in 2017. I got hit head on, and I wrote a story about In the Blink of an Eye. It really, truly, you're driving along, and I was at a stoplight, and I got hit, and it's really a blink. That's how quick it is.
Yep.
And that's how quick things happen. I always say you're blessed if you're given a 5-minute evacuation notice, because before you get hit by a car, you don't say, hold on. I didn't get my 5 minutes.
Right.
Yet. Or hit your girlfriend who hit the tree. It's crazy how many accidents there are, majority wise, that go off the road and hit a tree. I remember when I was 16 and I had a good friend in high school who went off the road, and it was like a pasture, like it was bare, and there was one tree and he hit it. Now, how is that possible? But it always seems to happen.
Yeah.
And I just want to help people get better prepared for the unexpected, because like I say in the show, we're all going to die. We just don't know when. We don't know how. We're going to get sick. We're going to get injured. We're going to have a tragedy of some sort, or we're going to lose something, your wallet or your purse or your passport, or you're going to lose part of your home in a flood, or whatever it might be. But something is going to happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Tina, thank you so much for coming on. This has been incredibly fascinating. And awesome. You've got me thinking about so much that I need to do to get my shit together. So thank you. I really, really appreciate it. Listeners, I will have everything in the show notes. If you just go to releasingtraumapodcast.com and pull up Tina's episode, I will have all her contact information, the link to her app for both iPhone and Android, and all of that in there. So definitely go get it. Download the app. It's like $8, guys. Come on. This is nothing. And, let's in 2022, let's all get our stuff together.
Yeah.
So
please,
absolutely.
Please do.
And if you have any questions about, emergency preparedness and all of that, definitely reach out to Tina for sure.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. Really, it's been my pleasure. My pleasure. Listeners, thank you as always for tuning in. We'll talk to you in the next show. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure you hit subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss a show. Be sure to check us out on our new socials on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.